A major surprise this Saturday could come from a wide receiver that we're not talking about.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. We're dapping it up. Darrell, Dapprich, Montgomery, radio legend, hanging out with us on this Wednesday. Plenty of surprises from the depth chart we want to circle back to from earlier this week that Hugh Freeze gave us on Monday. But look, there's going to be some surprises that happen this weekend when Auburn takes on Alabama A&M. And I think there's going to be surprises from both sides of the football. Starting on offense, Darrell, I think there's a real chance that Camden Brown is a surprise player on the offensive side of the ball. We're all focused on these freshman wide receivers. We're all focused on these transfer wide receivers. Camden Brown is one of the few constants in this wide receiver room when you look at the past few seasons to this year. And it didn't get a whole lot of traction because people want to hear about the new shiny things in the room, and I don't blame them. But Camden Brown, like in all of these notes that we've shared at thebarnauburn.com and talked about on the show, Camden Brown continued to have impressive plays in the scrimmage, but people just kind of glossed over it because there are more interesting things. I think there's a chance that Camden Brown is a surprise player for Auburn on Saturday.
Well, what's so fun about this is there are some known factors of things that everybody expects going into this game. That's the buzz. All these names that people are just constants. We've heard it all spring. We've heard it all fall. So it's kind of fun to have the people that are a little bit unsung that are going to cut, that may show out Saturday that no one's expecting.
It's always somebody like that, right?
There is.
There's always somebody like that.
And Camden Brown, I love because you know how much I always talked about, you tease me about Jeremiah Cobb. Roll the tape, as they used to say in the olden days, and go back to 2 years ago. I couldn't stop talking about Camden Brown. How high I was on him, how I was waiting for him to break out. He caught that touchdown pass against LSU a couple of years ago, and I jumped out of my recliner. I was so excited. I just felt like he had all the tools, and I could not wait for him to break out. And it just has never happened. So if it does, and it's a great pick, by the way, because we're hearing things about him this year that we didn't the last two, and he's in the shadows, man. Think about all the other receivers that are taught. He is just laying low in the weeds because of all the other hype that this Freeze 5 and Freeze 4 and KLS man, Robert Lewis, no one's talking about him, and yet the coaching staff is. And I think that's very telling.
And when we get reports from folks of these scrimmages, it's like, yeah, Camden Brown made an athletic catch for a touchdown. And to me, I do think those notes are flying under the radar because we talk so much about like, okay, well, KLS dominated on third down, or Robert Lewis is a security blanket for Peyton Thorne. And then like the note after that is, there was another impressive touchdown by Camden Brown. And I think that matters. And you talk about the leadership of what Camden Brown did. He won me over in the spring with the way he addressed the media and where he said, look, I committed to Auburn. Like I'm not going anywhere. This is the school I committed to, and I'm going to follow through. I'm a man of my word. And like, it's almost surprising in today's version of college football. And I hope that's rewarded. I was a year early on Eugene Asante. And then obviously last year he had his coming out party. I said it 2 years ago. So I was a year early. I'm predicting that you were a year early on Camden Brown, Darrell. That's what I'm predicting as far as saying, hey, because here's the thing. We're not saying Camden Brown is a number one receiver, and he's not going to be the number one receiver on Saturday. But I think if Camden Brown has 2 or 3 catches for, 45 yards or something like that, and that becomes kind of a steady piece of your offense, like I don't want people to think that we're going to say that Camden Brown's going to go out there and have a $120 for 2 touchdowns. That's not what we're saying. But I think a pleasant surprise for Camden Brown is consistent 2 or 3 catches a game, 40-ish yards per game. That is a key part of the offense. And that's what Camden Brown, I think that's a solid role for Camden Brown. And I think he can lead by doing that, which is another important part of this receiver room.
Well, two pretty bold statements I'm going to make here. First of all, it won't just be what Camden Brown does. It'll be how he does it that makes it special, like what he looks like getting 3 catches for 50 yards and maybe a touchdown, right? The physicality, and he has all the physical tools. And then I'm going to say this, and it's going to turn some heads. Auburn's receivers that we are hyping up so much do what they're supposed to do, and Camden Brown emerges as a guy that plays on a different level that he's played the last 2 years, Auburn will have one of the best receiving cores and receiving rooms in the conference, period. It's not going to be most improved. It's not going to be solid. It's not going to be no longer a question mark. It will be close to elite if the guys live up to their hype, the Lewises, the KLS, Coleman, Thompson. If you bring Camden Brown along into that mix and he plays at a higher level and starts to play like he was capable maybe of 2 years ago, watch out with the depth in this room. It could be very, very special and go up a whole nother notch from what we hope and expect already.
Yeah. So Camden Brown's I think he's going to surprise some people on Saturday. That's my pick on the offensive side of the ball. Who is your pick on the offensive side of the ball, Darrell?
Damari Alston. I just have this feeling.
Not the other running back?
Yeah.
Not Jeremiah Cobb?
I know, right? That's why. Because of how much people have been talking about Cobb and talking about Hunter. What is Hunter? Isn't he the leading rusher returning in the SEC? So he gets buzzed with that. Now, Hugh Freeze said no one's talking about Hunter, but since he made that statement, people have been talking about Hunter. I just think that Damari had a nice year last year. Had he not got hurt, what would his stats have projected as? Really nice, right? I just see him getting a lot of carries Saturday because the game might be in hand and you go to your second team back and doing a lot with those carries. I think he's going to be a very, very surprise breakout elite performer in Saturday's game.
Yeah, I think so. I think that makes sense because also there's going to be a level of management to how many times do you want Jarquez hit? How many times do you want Damari hit? How many times do you want Jeremiah hit? How many times do you want your quarterback hit? Which should be 0 on Saturday. And to me, that screams, okay, opportunity for the guys after Jarquez Hunter. There's no reason for Jarquez Hunter to touch the ball double-digit times. I think there's a chance that they do. We did a show yesterday talking about how I think Auburn is going to run the ball a lot. And if that's the case, you're going to get opportunities from Jarquez. You're going to get opportunities from Damari. You're going to get opportunities from Jeremiah Cobb. Sure. Yeah. Damari Alston scoring a touchdown on Saturday. That wouldn't shock me at all.
If the trend continues, and I don't want to give too much away because you've done a couple shows that talks about the heavy run pass distribution that Auburn has in these games, but even making it to another level against Alabama A&M when Auburn's played them twice in the last 12 years, what the run-pass ratios look like. It's just crazy. I mean, it's ludicrous. Auburn needs to move the needle a little bit on that, but if they don't and they stay par for the course as what they've done in these games and are run heavy, Alston's going to get a ton of touches and go crazy.
I love it. Yeah. So our picks for the offensive surprise player on Saturday, I say Camden Brown. Darrell says Damari Alston. What say you? Let us know either in the comments down below or on social media or at thebarnauburn.com. Coming up, we both think the surprise defensive player will be a linebacker, but we're going in 2 totally different directions. And we'll tell you why in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Darrell, you and I both love Game Time. We use it for everything. Look, if you're excited for this Saturday and you're like, oh, I don't have tickets yet, Game Time, you can get them for like $15 over at Game Time right now. So be sure to go and check that out. Download the free Game Time app. Darrell, what will they see when they go to buy tickets for Auburn and Alabama A&M in the Game Time app?
Well, you'll see your seats where you want to sit. You'll see maybe a little lightning bolt. I mean, look, I'm as excited about the Game Time app as Charlie 5 is about 5 Hour Energy.
Specifically the grape flavor.
Now, I'm not going to audibly express that.
That read's coming up in a little bit. You'll have your opportunity. Don't you worry.
Okay.
Don't you worry.
And I have friends and family members now that have caught on to the Game Time thing, so they're using it, and I love it.
Yeah, it's great. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, Darrell, on the defensive side of the ball, I want you to go first because I think this player is super interesting, and I've mentioned him earlier in the week, and you're 100% right. Who's the surprise player on the defensive side of the ball this Saturday, if you had to predict it?
I think Demarcus Riddick is going to get a ton of snaps and play in a lot of plays because of wanting to see what the freshman can do, the depth, the opponent. And I can't stop. I keep hearing things about him the last 2 weeks about how Auburn is utilizing him all over the field. And look, this is what's so key about this. I got a little concerned, going into the spring because we had heard some things about level of competition in high school. Was he a little bit overrated as a 5-star? And boy, has that turned into crickets. And no one's talking about that now. He is emerging, and I can't wait to watch the physical traits manifest themselves come Saturday.
Yeah, Demarcus Riddick is fascinating because we don't fully know what he's going to be able to do or what he's going to be asked to do. He's capable of doing a lot. I mean, played at multiple levels on the defense in high school, which I think actually hindered his ranking a little bit, depending on who you talk to as far as, safety versus linebacker. But we're hearing things about how he's all over the place. We heard incredible things about Demarcus Riddick in the few bowl practices he participated in before the Music City Bowl last year. I mean, this guy has hit the ground running, and he finally gets the chance to showcase how talented he is. In the last scrimmage, or maybe it was 2 scrimmages ago, it sounded like he was a very effective in pursuing the quarterback from a pass rush standpoint. I don't know if we're going to necessarily see that, but Demarcus Riddick, I'm 100% down with him being a surprise player for Auburn this weekend. But it also could be surprising based off of, one, how early in the game do we see him? And also, what do we see him doing? I mean, there's just a lot of variables when it comes to Demarcus Riddick, which that to me is what's so exciting about it.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see what position they have him lined up at. I always thought that he was going to play an inside linebacker position, but if we're hearing that he's rushing the quarterback so effectively, do they have him, more outside? Do they have him, or are they doing similar to what they did with Asante last year against Cal, where they brought him on delayed blitzes and things like that? Because I'm telling you, he's a beast if that unblockable.
Yeah, the issue, I think, with that prediction or projection is I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of delayed blitzes on Saturday. Over the course of the season, 100%. But as far as Saturday, I can't see DJ Durkin doing a whole lot of delayed blitzes or anything exotic against Alabama A&M.
Doesn't have to. I am one of those that subscribes to the theory that you don't, that I wouldn't put it on film. You and some others say put it all out on film, give them something to think about. So if that theory is
what
true,
you're going to do, they know.
They know.
Yeah,
I don't know. It maybe just to see if he's capable of doing it. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a defensive coordinator, but it'd be fun to watch him do it even once or twice just to see.
See what it looks like.
See what it looks like. Yeah,
right. I'm with you. I'm with you. My surprise defensive player, also a linebacker, not a freshman. In fact, been playing a lot of college football. Dorian Mausi is a guy that I think, especially if Austin Keys doesn't play, I think we're going to see a lot of him. Played a ton of college football at Duke, was a very effective player for Mike Elko up there. And to me, he's kind of been quiet. And Auburn has been very intentional on bolstering this linebacker room and creating depth with a lot of experience. And so I think Dorian Mausi is a guy who's kind of been forgotten about. And sure, Eugene Asante is going to get plenty of attention, as he should. But I think Dorian Mausi has a chance to be that next guy up, especially if Austin Keys is limited or doesn't play at all. We'll see. He's my surprise guy. Is the average Auburn fan that maybe doesn't follow every single roster move. They may be like, who is Dorian Mausi? What's going on there? To me, I think he could pop on Saturday.
Another good pick. I think that's where you have such a luxury now that you don't have to rush Keys back. make sure he's 100% healthy before you put him on the field. Auburn didn't really have that luxury last year with Gote and Mausi. Those guys are senior, veteran, played a lot of college football, a lot of Power 5 football. And I'm hearing good things about Woodyard. So, yes, Mausi can plug right in and start alongside Asante, and you can take your times and make sure Keys is completely healthy. But, look, there's a situation here where Mausi may play so well, and it'd be tough to get him off the field even when Keys does get healthy. He is very, very – he's got a ton of experience. He's very smart. Him and Asante together with communication on defense, I think that you don't drop off. There's not a drop off, and that's what happened last year. But there's not a significant drop, I think, with these 4 veteran linebackers.
Yeah, and I almost had my guy be Fanaje Gote, the latest addition, the transfer from Maryland. I'm making all these points. He's experienced. He's apparently been a quick learner and been impressive early on. And I'm like, wait, Dorian Mausi is all of these same things, and he went through spring. I'm gonna make it Dorian Mausi as my prediction for my surprise defensive player this Saturday. But I wouldn't be shocked if you saw Gote have a few moments as well. But yeah, ultimately my pick was is Dorian Mausi. So on defense, you've got Demarcus Riddick, the freshman linebacker. I've got Dorian Mausi, the veteran super senior linebacker, to kind of be our surprise defensive players for the Tigers this Saturday. Let's circle back to Auburn handing out the depth chart, if you even want to call it that. It's almost more like it was just a list of the roster by position. But there were some surprises that we didn't jump into enough. And Darrell's got 2, I think, pretty interesting takes. Let's jump into that just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at 5 Hour Energy. Darrell, look, we all go through life and it's tiring sometimes, or maybe you got a rough night's sleep, or maybe it's right after lunch and you're a little draggy and you're like, man, I got to finish the workday. Well, 5 Hour Energy helps you tackle anything that's in front of you. Darrell, they've got some flavors. I just want you to react to some of these flavors, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And these, of course, are all available at the website, 5hourenergy.com with the number 5. Watermelon.
Great. Ooh, yeah. Especially in the summertime. Yes.
Yeah, sure. Tropical burst.
Ooh, that makes me feel like I'm sitting somewhere in a hammock.
Okay.
Right. Getting rejuvenated with the waves crashing. Yeah.
Yeah. Then, of course, Charlie 5's favorite, the grape flavor.
I love grape, but nobody will ever love grape as much as Charlie 5 does. So I can't even audibly try to do that.
Oh, man, I'm glad.
I like grape. I'm a grape dude, but yeah, no, he's in another stratosphere.
Yeah. So go to 5hourenergy.com. Once again, that's the number 5hourenergy.com. The offer is only valid until September 30th. So go ahead and jump on that. And of course, you can unlock that offer by using promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Darrell, can you imagine wagering anywhere else? Look, I imagine most folks got ready on FanDuel for week 0. And I hope you listened. I don't know if I said on this show, but I was like, Georgia Tech's going to cover, which obviously they did. Look, the slate of games this weekend is awesome. Like, it is so great. Whether it's LSU, USC, whether it's Georgia, Clemson, whether it's Miami and Florida, doesn't matter. Head over to FanDuel because it's the best place to wager on all of your sports action. So right now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. So that's incredible. Visit FanDuel.com. It's insane. Mm-hmm. It's insane. You're absolutely right, Darrell. It's insane. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Darrell, you've got a few more thoughts that we didn't quite empty the tank when you and I reacted Monday afternoon to the presser and to the depth chart. There are 2 big surprises from Monday's depth chart release, and I think they're both really, really good. Start with the defensive one first.
I just don't know. I'm surprised that there's an or next to Jason Jones' name. I just considered him the perceived starter, just a given. And he's the starter at nose tackle, and then you go ahead and build around that. From his leadership standpoint, from what a returning dude, put some stats on film last year, and then how hard he's worked in the offseason. I just am surprised that there's even an option or an or next to him, despite who Auburn brought in. He just seems like a staple to me.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, there's a few positions, right? Like you could say that about. There's an or next to Keldrick Falk. There's an or next to Jalen McLeod. There's an or next to Asante. There's an or next to Keontae Scott and Kayan Lee. I think G.J. Durkin was asked to do this by Auburn media or the Auburn SID folks, and he's like, "Okay, if you're going to make me do this, I'm just going to put all of this." And so, like on the defensive side, I don't think any of it matters. That was just kind of my take of like, okay, this is literally just a list of like the 20 defensive guys that are going to play a ton, or 30 something defensive guys that are going to play a ton.
But I thought that some of the people that saw the scrimmages in the short media window were reporting that Rakes was going out there first and that Jason was going out there second. I could be wrong, but I thought I saw that in numerous outlets. So that combined with, you're right, none of it makes sense on the defensive side. Everybody's got an or next to it. But right. I just think that, to me, Jason Jones is the type that's like captain material, has been with the program now 3 years. He has worked really, really hard. He mentors kids. It's not just because he's a friend of the show either. I just really assumed that was an absolute slam dunk, period.
Yeah. The other one I think is more shocking because it actually looks like thought was put into the offensive side because there's only one or listed next to a starter, and that was your other surprise.
And it's a two-pronged surprise. Now, it's an offensive line issue, and it's the left side of the offensive line particularly. As I've mentioned before, I'm very surprised that Percy Lewis is not absolutely penciled in as a no-doubt starter, that there is the or next to him to where Dylan Wade could slide out there or Tyler Johnson could play there. I just thought that was a given and a rock solid. And then I'm pleasantly surprised that I'm hearing Braden Joyner's name so much. That, if Wade slides out to tackle, that Joyner can slide into that left guard position. That surprises me on the depth chart that I saw him that high. It really does. And that's a good surprise. It's a pleasant surprise.
Yeah. I've heard good things about Joyner as well. And I think Jason Jones has come on the show a few weeks ago and mentioned him by name, because obviously he's an interior offensive lineman. Jason's going to go up against him a bunch, but he shouted him out before, I think even dating back to spring, that he's thought highly of him, kind of hitting the ground running as a younger player. So, yet when you think about the early things we've heard about Joyner and the early things we've heard about Tyler Johnson, who's listed as an or next to Percy, Connor Lew's got another year after this. It's like the future of the offensive line. Like, this is what it looks like building quality depth and building for the future. It's like this is some of the examples of why this is going to work during the Hugh Freeze era.
DeAndre Carter and Dylan Senda, two more names I've heard that could be counted on, future next year. Give them another offseason, another strength and conditioning, that both of those guys. And then I don't know where Ronan Chambers, I saw him as a backup listed, which was pretty intriguing. And I saw Muskrat as a backup. But those are two veteran guys that if you have to go down the chart a little bit because of injuries, you've got three centers, which how nice of a situation is that? Behind Lou, Tate Johnson can play center, and so can Joyner. So that's a luxury in there right there that I think Auburn, we know what it's like when Auburn lost. What was the pilot guy? Nick Brahms? Remember? Right. It just dropped off a cliff after that.
Yeah. Eighth-year starter, Nick Brahms. Yeah. I think I'm a little surprised that we heard Joyner at guard mentioned by Freeze over Ronan Chambers.
Yeah.
That was
or
a surprise to me.
Muskrat. I keep thinking Muskrat.
I haven't heard anything about Muskrat.
I know,
like,
and that's surprising to me. I mean, this is a dude that didn't he play a lot of snaps at Tulsa? I mean, you would think that he would have more opportunity than somebody that hasn't played, a lot since coming out of high school. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, Chambers and Muskrat are guys that you think you get so that if something happens to your starters, they're plug and play guys. And we're not hearing that much.
And then we heard Joyner instead, which is interesting. It's interesting for sure. I guess with Muskrat, like the main guy who brought him in, I assume, was his former head coach and the offensive coordinator last year, Philip Montgomery, with 1L. I mean, I'm sure Jake Thornton was involved too, who's still here, the offensive line coach. But I do wonder, like, how much of the influence came from him following Montgomery since they had a relationship. I don't know.
Worked well for Wade. That relationship,
100%.
Yeah,
but Wade is a better. I mean, Wade's a better offensive. Yeah,
he could have come from any school without Philip Montgomery and made an impact.
100%. Yeah. So, and look, I mean, props to Wade for kind of being the constant on the left side of the line. I mean, it sounds like he's become he's viewed as a really solid offensive lineman. When he kind of had some mixed reviews last year, I don't think he's really getting that this year, which I think is great.
He's this year's Gunnar Britton, because Britton last year held it down last year. Oh, we're going to move you to guard. Oh, we're going to move you to tackle. And, guys did that and played and didn't complain and held it down. And I think Wade has kind of evolved into that role, stepped into that role that Britton had. I hope he doesn't. My hope is that he stays at guard and doesn't freaking move the whole year. That's my hope. And that Lewis stays at tackle and doesn't move except for rotations and substitutions. That's what I hope. The bounce back and forth.
How many offensive linemen do we see while Peyton Thorne is at quarterback on Saturday?
8.
So the starting 5, which we think will be Percy, D. Wade, Connor Liu, Jeremiah Wright, and Xavier Miller from left to right.
Yep.
And then they'll do some where they'll slip Tyler Johnson in at left tackle some. And then when they move Dylan Wade into left tackle, who all do you think we'll see? Sounds like
Braden Joyner. And then we'll see Tate Johnson maybe as a backup center to give Lou.
So that's your 8 while Peyton's in there.
Yep. Yeah.
I like that. I think that's good. I think I agree with all of that. So, Darrell, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Follow me on X, Dap6410, Instagram, Darrell Dap, Wednesdays and Fridays with you. And then Sunday, our first reaction show drops. And then I'll be writing a couple articles this week, one this week, and then a Sunday kind of Saturday recap, some takeaways from the press box for the game.
Yep, and that'll be at auburndaily.com, as well as stuff in thebarnauburn.com. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.